Hello there. It is a Tuesday just after noon, and I am in Gangnam district in the neighborhood of Nonhyun-dong. I'm right now between Nonhyun Station, which is just to the south there, and Shinsa Station just to the north. And I've come out here today to take you, I've brought you out here today to take you on a walk through the back streets of Gangnam. The main streets of Gangnam are big and wide and full of, office buildings and towers and things like that. And, that's all interesting in its own right. But when I walk through Gangnam, I enjoy walking the back streets. And I want to show you a little bit of that today. One of the interesting things about the back streets of Gangnam is you'll find that the commercial properties bleed into the residential areas pretty deeply, right? In many neighborhoods in Seoul, the commercial properties are on the outskirts of a block, and you get deep into the block, you'll find it's just pretty much all residences. Maybe a little convenience store here on a corner somewhere in there, or a restaurant or two, a hair shop or two. But you don't find office buildings bleeding into the neighborhood. But here in Gangnam, you see that in a lot of areas. And we've got, like here, you've got this house here. This is an actual house, looks like, not a villa. And then you've got this office building here and a small apartment building here, right? And look at that house over there. So that's another thing that's interesting about the Gangnam back streets is the variety of residences that you'll find. I mean, development started here in the 1970s, and it's pretty much gone on continuously ever since. And buildings go up and come down and go up and come down. So you'll find in some areas apartments like this, and these look a little older. But among the villas, the low-rise apartments, you'll find like a building built in 1979 standing next to a building built in 2014, and next to that is one built in 1997. It's just been continuous like that over the years. And look at this one. This one is older, looks like. Now look at this. I'm rather deep into the block here, and we've got this generative AI company here in this newish office building amongst all these residences. You don't find a lot of neighborhoods elsewhere in Seoul where if you're living in an apartment in the center of a block, you might have office workers as your next door neighbors. But Gangnam, it's rather normal. So I mean, look at this. This house here is an older house. You'll see houses like this in neighborhoods all around Seoul, but these office buildings right across the street from it, you just don't see that as often. I'm sure you'll find exceptions around the city, but it's just the norm here. And the other thing is the variety in architecture. In other neighborhoods, you'll find the villas all have kind of a bit of a sameness about them. Maybe the facades are different, but when you come to Gangnam, you'll find that the architecture just widely varies. People have gotten very creative with their architecture here. And so we go from this house to this thing here to this looks like a European apartment building, I don't know. And, this is just one of the most interesting things for me, walking down the back streets of Gangnam neighborhoods. Now, if you get further south into Daechidong, you get these apartment buildings, a lot of apartment buildings there in southern Daechidong, and in northern Daechidong, you get a lot of older villas. And there's a lot of that sameness there in that area. But around Nonyeondong and Shinsadong and other neighborhoods, it's just the variety is amazing. Gangnam district became the focus of development in Seoul in the 1970s. And at that time, it was a lot bigger than it is now. In the 80s, it was split up into Socho-gu and Socho district to the west and Songpa district to the east. And I guess also Gangdong district, the over on the eastern side of Seoul. It used to be part of the Gangnam area, and it was probably split off in the late 70s, I think. Development was restricted in other areas of the city to focus it here. And as a consequence, today it has the highest property values in the city. It's really crazy expensive to buy property here. To rent here in Gangnam is more expensive than other areas of the city. And that's what prompted all the new town projects in the early 2000s. The government put out a list of, I don't remember how many, 20 something, maybe new town projects over a couple of years. And the goal was to, equalize development, bring up the property values in other parts of the city where they were extremely low, and balance out the cultural properties and the number of medical facilities per 1,000 residents, that kind of thing. I don't think it's been as successful as they had hoped. Gangnam is still, the place to be for people if you can afford it. Another thing you'll find here is that most of the neighborhoods in Gangnam were planned. They didn't grow organically. So you'll find lots of straight streets, right? Streets that go in a straight line. You don't find the windy, curvy streets like you do in some of the more organic neighborhoods on the north side of the river and elsewhere. And the only thing that causes a street to bend usually is, the terrain or maybe a large property. Look at this old house. I mean, just the contrast, right? This with this and this. I wonder what's gonna go up here. Probably another office building, maybe a villa, who knows? Now, there's always been this mix of commercial and residential buildings as far back as I can remember, but it seems to me like it's just more intense than it used to be. It seems like there are more office buildings spreading into the blocks than in the past. like the office buildings are taking over some of these blocks. One thing about these back streets, and it's true not just here but all over the city, is you don't typically find sidewalks or any designated pedestrian space. In some places you might, on one or two streets, see something like that. They'll have like a pedestrian path outlined on one side of the street, but those are quite rare. So you've always got to be aware of your surroundings when you're walking on these back streets. They're easy to get around, but the safety thing, right? You've always got to think about that. Now, most of the drivers going through these back streets are aware that they're going to be driving around pedestrians, and especially here in areas like this where you've got all this mixed office buildings and residences. Like right now, you've got all these people out here because it's lunchtime. So the drivers are used to navigating pedestrians. Now, I mean, like this, it's not so bad as long as you stay to the edge, stay off to the side. Don't be walking out in the middle of the street. The issue comes at the intersections, because a lot of times people don't slow down at the intersections on these back streets, like this one right up here. You can see there's a cross street here. So you've really got to be careful when you're crossing the intersections. Always be aware of what's around you. And if you are walking the back streets and you're listening to music or something, I recommend not to have noise cancellation turned on. Have the transparency mode turned on if your headphones support it, your earbuds, AirPods, whatever. Because when noise cancellation on, especially if it's a good set like the AirPods Pro, you aren't going to always hear the cars when they come up on you until they're right up on you. So I strongly recommend having transparency turned on when you're walking along the back streets like this. Now we're in an area where you'll see fewer of the office buildings have invaded the block. But what you find is that a lot of these old residences this is a villa here, this is a low-rise apartment, but the first floor apartment has been converted to commercial space. Here too. And here. And this is a pretty common thing around Gangnam. And I mean, it's a common thing around the city now, but there's a lot more of it here in Gangnam. This is where I first noticed it happening back in the early 2000s. My wife and I were living over here in Gangnam, over by Sundeung Station, just, I guess, off, not far from us here, a block or two away from here. And while we were living there, we noticed that on the back streets, there were things like hair shops and convenience stores that started opening up on the first floor of some of the villas where previously there had been, an apartment. And now that's just, those things are just all over the place. No matter how deep into a neighborhood you go, you can find cafes and bakeries and whatnot on the first floor, taking up space that was formerly a residence. And that's another reason I enjoy walking the back streets of Gangnam, despite the potential danger with all the cars. I mean, this place right here, I'm not sure how long it's been here, but I don't remember seeing it before. Little burger joint. And I mean, look, this is a residence, right? It's not even a villa, it's kind of a house, I guess. And it's got a couple of businesses in it now. The videos on my channel mostly revolve around walking somewhere. I take you through a neighborhood, show you something interesting. This one, I find the back streets of Gangnam pretty interesting. And I've gotten a few questions and comments in the YouTube channel and through email about walking, since I started the channel. Some people telling me their own walking stories, people interested in if I'm doing it to lose weight, and all this other stuff. There are two primary reasons that I started walking the way I do. Now, I fell into this extremely sedentary lifestyle in my late 20s, early 30s that was really unhealthy. I was eating badly. I wasn't getting any exercise and, put on a lot of weight. And it was just, I was a mess, right? My health was a mess. In my late 30s, I got motivated and got into exercise, got into a healthier lifestyle. And so I got into the best shape of my life. I was in better shape in my 40s than I was in my 20s. But eventually I stopped all these activities over time, gradually, for various reasons. Temporarily was the intention, and then never came back to them for the most part. So in my early 50s, I started having issues with weight again. I wasn't in a sedentary lifestyle at all. I was still active. I was choosing to walk instead of taking public transportation when I could, that kind of thing. But it wasn't intense activity. And of course, slower metabolism, right, with age. So I started putting on weight again. But more importantly, I started having trouble with sleep again. In my 30s, I had sleep trouble, but it was because of my lifestyle and dietary choices, right? And modifying those eventually led me to get better sleep. But in my 50s, I don't know what happened. Age. So a couple of years ago, my wife and I were on a trip to the UK, and we were doing a lot of walking, and we were getting a lot of good sleep. And one morning, I just happened to look at the step count on my health app from the day before, and I saw, something like 16,000, 17,000 steps, and it clicked. Something clicked. I thought, okay, I slept very deeply. I feel very rested. We went to bed early. We woke up early, and we feel great. It's been happening the whole time that we've been here. I'm not walking enough back home. That's the problem, right? We're making ourselves tired from all this walking, and that's helping us get this deep sleep. It's the number of steps. That's the thing. Making yourself tired just to sleep deeply isn't really the best way to approach the problem. It still seemed like a good idea at the time. So when we got back from that trip, that's when I started doing at least 10,000 steps every day. And usually I've been trying to get more. So in the beginning, it did make me tired, and it did help me sleep. But then I got used to it, right? I got used to it, and I started having my sleep trouble again. Now, the good thing is that doing all these steps, it helped bring my weight down. And the more I walk, the better. So that's why, by the way, I've chosen 10,000 steps. 7,000 steps, they say, is the point of diminishing returns in terms of health benefits, overall health benefits. And that may be true. I find that if I want to keep my weight down, I've got to walk at least 15, 20,000 steps on a regular basis. If I slow down from that, I'll start putting weight on again. And, diet, of course, is very important to that too. All of that's great. It's really beneficial, but I didn't know how to get a handle on my sleep. And so I started looking at getting a smartwatch, particularly an Apple Watch, because over the last decade, I've really fallen into the Apple ecosystem. So I figured, why not? I've got all these other Apple devices. Why not add one more? But I hate wearing watches. That's the thing. I haven't worn a watch in over 20 years. The last watch I wore was one that my mother-in-law gave me as a gift. And I only wore it because it was a gift from her. But I didn't wear it very long. And the idea of wearing a watch in bed, I just can't imagine it. Getting over that hurdle, it was, $400 for the standard watch, The SE was like $300. You get all this extra stuff with it, sure. But I just want it for the sleep data. That's all I want. And then I saw a video on YouTube. This guy was talking about a ring, a smart ring. And I had never heard of smart rings before. I didn't know these were a thing. But apparently they have been now for the last few years. This seemed like a potential solution. Now, I don't like wearing rings either, but I can stomach a ring more than I can a watch, mentally anyway. And I started looking into this ring, and this particular brand was Ultrahuman. It's the Ultrahuman Ring Air, and it tracks your sleep data. So I was up in the air, okay? There are benefits to buying the watch that I don't get with the ring. You get that touch screen. I have an iPhone. I can, take my messages here on the watch, all that stuff. You don't get all that with the ring, right? And the ring is $349. It was a tough decision. And I was leaning toward the ring one day, and then I'd be leaning toward the watch the next day. And then thankfully, in a bit of serendipity, Ultrahuman made the choice very easy for me. I got an email from a representative of Ultrahuman offering to give me a ring in exchange for making a couple of videos about the ring. Now, I have turned down multiple such offers from other companies before. This one I decided to accept. And the reason is twofold. One, it's a product I was really interested in using myself, right? So, that much is a no-brainer. Okay, yeah, I really wanted to buy this ring anyway, and now you're offering to give it to me for free, sure. But the second reason is I think it's something you might be interested in. That's what killed most of the other offers that I've received. Either I wasn't interested in them myself, or I just didn't see that my audience watching these videos would be interested in them. But this, I think fits. Most of my viewers are around my age, right? I'm kind of in the middle of the majority of my viewers. They're either 10 years older or 10 years younger than me mostly. And I assume in that case that you're probably as concerned about your health as I am. Good quality sleep is an important component of that. So yeah, I took them up on it. I got the ring. I got it in, I believe, November is when I first got my hands on it. They first sent me a sizing kit with multiple options to try out to make sure I got the right size. And then they sent me the ring, and it all happened pretty quickly. The first couple of weeks after I got it, it was collecting data on me to understand my sleeping patterns and my activity patterns and all that. And so then I really started getting into it in December or so. The rep told me they don't care what I say about the ring. They're not going to ask to review the videos, and so they haven't. And they're not giving me any money. All I get out of this is the ring, but that is a form of payment. But yeah, no cash payment. So I'm free to say whatever I want. There's no contractual obligation at all. And I will say that so far, I'm happy with it. I haven't used it to its full extent yet. I've only been focused on the sleep data. So you get this app. It's the Ultra Human app. This thing tracks your heart rate variability, the time between beats. It tracks your temperature. That's how I knew I had a fever without needing to stick a thermometer in my mouth the other day when I had a cold, which I'm just recovering from, by the way. It tells you the different stages of your sleep, how much time you spent in each of them. It tracks your step count. I don't think it's very accurate compared to my iPhone. I don't pay much attention to the step count on this. Now, I can integrate the data from this app into the iPhone's health app, and I've chosen to do that for the sleep data. I haven't done it for the step count. I just use the iPhone step count because that's what I've been using for a long time now. But the most important thing for me is the sleep data. And it's not about the data for any one night. It's about the data over time. What's the change? Are you improving? Are you getting better sleep over time? This isn't a magic ring. It's not a silver bullet. It's not gonna, like you're gonna get the ring and instantly you're gonna start sleeping better. Yeah, you have to work. And the best you can do is use the data that the ring is giving you to understand how your actions are impacting your sleep. So I found that just by adhering to this caffeine window and following its other recommendations, that has helped me improve my sleep over time, especially the recommended bedtime. You know, another thing I love about the app is it gives me constant reminders to stand up when I've been sitting at my desk, right? The ring knows how long I've been sitting. Overall, I'm happy with it. Would I spend $349 for it? If you are like me, if you're concerned about your sleep, you don't like wearing watches, you can't imagine wearing a watch to bed, and you really want to do something about your sleep and you're having trouble doing it on your own, then yeah, I think this is absolutely worth the price just to get back to that quality sleep. So yeah, if you can get back to quality sleep on your own, if you already have a smartwatch that gives you this data, you're not going to need this. If you don't care about your sleep, you're probably not going to need this, based on what I've seen of it so far, right? Now, I'm going to spend a few more months looking at the other features of the app, the exercise videos and all this other stuff it has. And I'll say more about it once I've dug into it some more. So if that is you, you can follow the link in the description below to see more about the ring. And if you decide to buy one, you can use the discount code in the description next to the link for a 10% discount. And I'll get a small commission if you do that. most neighborhoods we've lived in, including the one where we live now, I'll go to the convenience store in, sweatpants and slippers and a t-shirt. But when we were living here in Gangnam, I always felt like I had to get dressed to go out of the house because there were offices right around the corner. It just feels it's so different. There are all kinds of hidden gems to be discovered around here. And you may find something you really, really like. The shops you find, the cafes and stuff you find on these back streets, they're gonna be independently owned. Usually they're not gonna be the big franchises and the big chains and that kind of thing. And here's another house. Well, that's all I've got for you today. I think we'll call it here. Thanks for watching, thanks for liking, thanks for subscribing, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.